So many of you know that in December of 2005, my father, after a series of mysterious falls and visits to various care facilities, passed away in a hospital in Pittsburgh. But 2005 was not all bad. You know what else happened in 2005? Grey's Anatomy premiered. Now listen, I have not watched the show in at least 10 years. I have no idea if it's even still on, but then it was appointment viewing. So by the late November of 2005, I was spending the days in my dad's hospital room trying to figure out what was going on, and the evenings at my mom's apartment watching Grey's Anatomy. So one day I'm in my dad's ICU bay and a really hot guy in scrubs walks in. And I was like, oh, hey, you doctor? And he was like, no, I'm a resident. And I was like, oh. And because of Grey's Anatomy, I knew what residents did. They had a lot of sex in hospital closets. And I was like, okay, yeah. And so we start chatting. My father is lying comatose between us. And it sort of feels like flirting, and like it makes me a horrible person, but also I blame it on Grey's Anatomy because like this was normal, right? So we both make sure to work in our spouses into the conversation. Like I was like a happily married newlywed at that point, and he's like, oh yeah, my wife, she's from Arizona, she really doesn't like the snow in Pittsburgh. And I was like, oh, my husband's from New York, and like he doesn't mind the snow, but like he doesn't like Pittsburgh when it's not snowing. And he's like, yeah. And so like this feels like flirting, but it's just like, whatever. This happens all the time on Grey's Anatomy. I'm sure it's totally fine. And then he says, so can you help me with the procedure? And I kid you not, like I look behind me to see if anyone else is in the ICU bay, and there's no one. It's me, the hot resident, and my dad in a coma. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? And it turns out that help with the procedure was not innuendo. Like he literally needed someone to assist him in a medical procedure, and that was me. And I was like, ah. So it sort of was like Grey's Anatomy. So I scrub in, which in this case meant I put antibacterial foam on my hands, and I'm standing on one side of my father, and the hot resident is standing on the other side, and he's there to sew my dad's PICC line down. So like I'm holding it in place, touching only the PICC line while he's sewing, right, my dad's like skin. So I don't know, it all seemed normal at the time, but very exciting. So I go home that night and I'm like, Mom, this like really hot resident had me assist with the procedure today. And she's like, that can't be right. And I was like, but it was. And then we watched Grey's Anatomy. So a couple weeks later, I'm at my office in New York City, and I get the call that like the doctors can't bring my father out of the coma that they put him in. Oops. And so I have to go home, and like we're turning off machines. And so the next morning, I'm standing in my father's ICU bay with my mom and my older brother, and in walks the hot resident. And I was like, oh, hey. And he was like, I'm really sorry to see you in these circumstances. Like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, we'll be fine. And I was like, Mom, this is the resident I was telling you about. I helped him, with the procedure. And my mom goes, oh, the hot one? And like, bad enough the words that were said, but she clearly did not agree with me that he was hot. And she made this like really clear to him. So she was like, oh, the hot one? And like the impulse to jump across my father's comatose body and strangle her with my bare hands was like way up there. But like, I knew I was going to have a dead dad in a couple hours. So I was like, better let Mom live. So I look at my brother with the look that can only say, like between siblings, did that just happen? And he looks at me with a look that I frequently remember from my childhood, which basically said, she's your mother. Like disavowing the person who birthed him. So I was like, oh my God, okay, this is happening. And to his credit, hot resident was like, so I'm gonna go get an attending. And I was like, awesome because I knew what attendings did because of Grey's Anatomy. They had lots of sex with hot residents in closets. Thank you very much.